I am.
Oh my god. Easy. Yeah, I'm gonna miss that. That was really good. But what's up, guys? Koga here again, giving you a little updates on my Oni Cry build that has been getting a little bit of a hype. And I've gotten a lot of questions on that build, so I decided I love that build enough to, you know what, give you an update for the Harvest League and make it work again. You guys don't know how hard it took me. That build was literally gutted in the worst possible way. It wasn't damage. It was a mechanic. And if I just gave you a build without like realizing what that freaking mechanic was, it would have been terrible. Let's go over what changed, shall we? But before we get into the gist of it, guys, I do stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, Sunday at twitch.tv/Kogaras. The link is down below. If you guys want to see me continue the winter tide, I'm going to be maxing out this weekend and then probably making the build guide right after. I have a lot of hope for that build, so high expectations. On top of that, if you guys want to join the Discord link in the description down below, I have a pretty active community in terms of player base, and I'm always willing to answer any questions they have. And it's like the one-way shop, honestly, to ask me any question on the spot that's more detailed. So, yeah, if that's up to your boat, consider it. Leave a follow. Thank you guys so much. Let's continue. Okay. So what changed? Well, before we get into the topic, I'm going to link a video below, my old video, my Oni Cry back in Delirium, to show you guys how it works. But I'll give you a quick summary of what it was meant to do. It was called Oni Cry Zoomer for two reasons. It used Oni-Goroshi, it used war cries, and it went really fast. The whole point of the build was to be a zoomer, aka get a fuck ton of movement speed for that weekend. Cyclone really fast without having to leap slam. It felt really nice, and if you saw the toxic sewer, you just zoom through. I'll show you guys a quick map later. It felt really nice. I love that build to death, and it wasn't the super tankiest, but it did live the majority of the times with the occasional death, because you know what, it was basically, it wasn't a glass cannon, but the whole point of the build was to basically just dish out insane amount of deeps. So overall, Oni-Goroshi, it's a sword that gives you a blessing, that gives you a crap ton of physical as extra fire, yes, and I think it's like 123%, some weird ass number. It gives you a second round of onslaught, that it degens your life for fire damage, kind of like a righteous fire. It's not considered burning or ignite, keep that in mind. And a lot of people fail to realize that the whole point of the sword is you're not supposed to scale elemental damage to attacks. That's the one-way trip to no DPS. I've seen a lot of people fall into that trap. You're supposed to scale it like a Void Forge and a Phase Breaker and get a lot of flat fizz, because then you didn't scale out that physical as extra, kind of like a stat stick, before they completely gutted that too. Now, I wanted to combine this with Rite of Ruin, which is the triple rage stack, I guess you can say. The triple rage effectiveness from the Berserker. It was really good because it gave you an insane amount of movement speed, 30%, attack speed, and damage. It's literally like one of the highest sources of damage in the build. However, it gave you another degen. That means we had two degens to work out. And the way we fixed it was back in the old Warcry, I guess, meta. With the, was it Cry Wolf? It gave you, your Warcries acted like they had 10 additional enemies. It's not like the one now where it says minimum power. It's additional power. So you can stack them. Back before, it was 40. Which means that with 4 of those, the regen will give you 1,300. But you're like, okay, that's less than 1,900, right? The current Enduring Cry. Problem. Back then, Enduring Cry lasted over 3 seconds, which is the duration of the blessing. 3 seconds. Now it lasts 1 second. And you can't change it. Literally cannot change that. You think, oh, probably let's stack some Warcry buff effect. Stack some cooldown recovery. Even if you get all the cooldown recovery in the tree, the lowest you can get it, even with second wind with quality, is 2.2 something seconds or 2.6 seconds. Good luck with that. You need it to last 1 second, because apparently buff effect doesn't increase the regen duration. Great. So then I go to the wiki and I read this. You can increase the duration if you stack skill effect duration and buff duration. Liar! Yeah. No, that's not true. Freaking wiki, man. So this happened the second day. This was my hope, right? After the first day, I almost gave up. Second day, I read that. And I'm like, It's done. The build's done. There's no way. It felt like shit to map with 1 second of massive regen and 2 seconds of massive degen. If, obviously for obvious reasons, those 2 seconds will literally just kill you. On top of that, before we abused the warning call cluster because it gave you, what, like 40 to 50% crit chance and 30 crit multi if you war cried recently. And since our war cries were, what, a second long? I mean, it was like 1.5 cooldown. It was obviously it's gonna happen recently, so we had that damage up all the freaking time. And now they gutted it. It's armor. You might as well think it doesn't exist because it's literally shit. And then you put there's another one called Provocator. It's the other Warcry one, right? It's garbage. It's literally garbage. It gives you what, 30%, not even, like 20% crit chance and 10 crit multi. Great. 10 crit multi, not even it's a third of what it was that one node. On top of that, there's no other node you can want on Warcries that benefits you. They removed Warcry buff effects and now replaced it with exerted attacks. And exerted attacks do not support repeated attacks like multi-strike and channeling. And Cyclone's a channeling skill. So that's the wasted mod. So I'm literally about my wit's end here, thinking about, okay, how the hell do I fix this? You know, there has to be some way. There has to be some way. Okay, and then I look into the cluster jewels and there's a crit chance. Cluster jewel, that affects me. You can get Provocator for the damage and Precise Commander for some more damage. That's up all the time. It's like 10%, no, it's like 30% crit chance and 12 per multi. Oh, I give you an extra 2 per multi, guys. Hog. No. The problem with the Provocator is that the enemy has to be taunted. But since our war cry is on a freaking 3 point something cooldown duration in those 3 seconds, right? If you fought an enemy in between that gap in between, they weren't taunted, which means you lost a F ton of damage. It felt like shit. Did not work. Did not like it. It did not meet my expectations. So our damage is whack. And our regen's whack. So then I go to, okay, let's play Chieftain then. Chieftain gives you a bunch of regen per endurance charge. And we get endurance charges from war cries. And he does have that endurance charge during, I guess, like, gain when you war cry recently. Problem. Chieftain sucks dick. Literally ass. And the only time that it becomes okay is when you have that buff that gives you 100% of your physical session fire, which lasts 4 seconds. You know how annoying it is to like actually watch that timer? And even with that node, it was still less damage than Berserker, who had the damage up always. So Chieftain, for me, was out of the picture. I did not like it. If you're okay with the less damage and the higher survivability, then you can do it, but I don't recommend it because it's shit. So, is it dead? Is the build dead? You're probably thinking the build's dead. It's not. I wouldn't be making this video if it was freaking dead. I did it. I fixed the effing build. You're welcome. Big brain boy. So how do we do this? Here, get some stats for you. So, issue number 1. Enduring Cry lasted 1 second, meaning we could not use it no matter how much we invested into it. We could not use that as our main source of regen. The problem number 2, we have to find another channeling skill, called Cluster Jewel that gave us good damage. Lo and behold, I didn't think GG left this on the tree. I mean, in the game. I thought they literally removed it, and they didn't. There's a Cluster Jewel for channeling, which does affect Cyclone. It's not like a wasted effect like exerted attacks. That gives you, what, 30% crit chance and 20 crit multi if you're channeling, which is always. Like, why would GGG leave that and remove the Warcry one? It's easier to do that than the Warcry. That one node is better than the Precise Commander and Provocator together. Stack 3 of these. There's a reason only 3 instead of 4. I'll give you that. I'll explain that in detail in the detail section. I stack 3 of these and we gain, what, 60 crit multi? Hell yeah, bro. And a good amount of crit chance. We're good. We're good. We found our source of damage. How do we fix problem number 2? Well, look at this. There's another node called the Vital Focus. Not when precise. No, Vital. 30% increased damage with channeling skills. Pog. 1.5% regen while channeling. Stack 3 of these and you're at 4.5% regen. Well, we're getting somewhere. Stack the regen on the tree. Plus the enduring, the enduring cry mini node that gives you like 0.2%, regen per endurance charge. Plus the endurance charge node, you're at 4 endurance charges. Good amount of regen there. Plus the enduring cry every 3.62 seconds as my cooldown right now with the second wind and 1 node and tree. We also have when you work high, you recover 10% life. And then at the end of the day, if you pick up Oracali and you get the recovery node that gives you 50% recovery rate after you stop taking damage over time, which the blessing is the damage over time the last 3 seconds. So when that falls off, you get 50% recovery rate. That fixed the build. You're welcome. Now, is it as good as its glory days? No. We did lose a lot of damage, mainly because Rallying Cry no longer affects us. It gave us a humongous source of damage, especially with the old Cry Wolf. But hey, I don't think it's a big deal because I know a lot of people did not like you have to socket in 2 different war cries. Now we only have to worry about 1 war cry and it's on our movement while we cyclone, so you're holding down both buttons while cycloning. It's not a big deal, you get used to it. So that's whatever. On the positive note though, they added conversion, fire conversion on the tree, and that gave us a lot of damage. So you no longer had to do that bull crap with the Crusader Exalted Orb and the Topotante mod from the temple. You can just craft conversion, get that 1 node, and with the Zof's blood, you have full conversion, or at least 95% conversion. Good enough, right? So that did help a lot. We got a lot of damage there. So overall, the build still functions. I'm gonna show you guys a quick map. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry that I'm ranting. It took me 10 hours to fix this. I'll give you guys a little montage of how it works, and then we'll go into the detailed section. Hope you guys enjoy. And it lives. Add you guys in the detailed section.
He did not hesitate to inflict pain.
Welcome back, guys. Let's go into the detailed section now. I'm not going to cover all the gear in detail like I did in the previous video because that was basically done already. The gear really hasn't changed much. I'm only going to focus more on the things that changed drastically and changed the build in the way that it functions, right? I'm of course going to go over the gear, but just going to brush over it real quick. So let's focus on the main thing, right? The cluster jewels that we were noting before were Cry Wolf and Warding Call, like I previously described. We're no longer using those because, of course, they don't work anymore. So we're going to use Precise Focus for the damage. It gives you 30% crit chance while channeling. Anchor multi-EV channel for at least 1 second. That's obvious. After 1 second, get the buff. And then Vital Focus, which gives you 30% damage, which is good. But most importantly, we generate 1.5% of life regen per second while channeling. We stack 3 of these. Precise, Vital, and Precise, Vital. Now, this one that I didn't explain earlier on because it's a little bit more complicated. But we do keep 1 Warcry node, and I'll explain why. Mob Mentality gives you Warcries at 5% chance to get an Endurance Charge, Frenzy Charge, and Power Charge per power. Against a unique monster, which have 20. We see unique monsters have 20, if you see it there. That means 20 times 5 is 100%. That means we have a 100% chance of at least getting a Power Charge or a Frenzy Charge. I deem it worthwhile. Now, you guys don't have to use this, but I kept it because it's basically the only other good node other than probably Provocator, which I don't really like anymore. that works with lead by example. So in the POB, I put like 1 power charge and 1 frenzy charge because chances are you're going to have at least one of those. Only that. I didn't put 3 because I didn't want to overdo the POB damage. But the more important one is lead by example. And it says when you war cry, you and nearby allies gain onslaught. Now you're probably wondering, like, why do we need this? Well, Warbringer changed. It used to be, you know, the war cry gives you life, recovers 25% of your life, and a bunch of the stuff that gives you rage when you war cry. Actually, no, that's another node. They got nerfed too, but I'll explain in a bit. It was basically cooldown recovery for war cries and things like that. Then now it's different. This doesn't help us because Cyclone cannot be exerted. So we were forced to not take Flawless Savagery, which is perfectly fine. I had like 2-something million damage. It's great. Gives you crit chance. The fizz is absolutely amazing for an Oni-Goroshi build and crit multi. It's a good node. But here's the problem with that. Before I didn't use the life flask because it's healed for us and we had such a small cooldown. Now we're forced to use the life flask. And for that very reason, I had a bleed flask from my diamond. Now it's a bleed flask from my internal. But then to drop a flask, so we dropped the cinderswallow. It's the most expensive thing. But it only gives you onslaught, and it was the least damage out of all the flasks. And we can easily get onslaught back from lead by example. All we have to do is just war cry every 4 seconds. And how do we do this? Easy. All you need is, of course, we have our enduring cry. You're going to link it to a second wind with quality, because with quality gives you increased cooldown recovery. And then with these little 3 nodes, which give you a little bit of cooldown recovery there, and a little bit of cooldown recovery there, and give you a little recovery life when you war cry. A war cry now has a cooldown of 3.87 seconds. Perfect enough, where we have perma onslaught no matter what. As you can see, 2, 1, proc. So no matter what, we have a permanent onslaught, and that fixes pretty much everything in terms of the flash, right? That's how I dealt with that fix. I wanted to minimize the losses as much as possible. Another thing was, one of the ways we gain damage is this. They added these 2 nodes here, right? Which give you 20% conversion, and then another one gives you, again, 20% conversion, so for a total of 40. It's very similar to the cold ones over here that have been in the game for quite a while now. I'm surprised it took them so long to add a fire, and there still isn't a lightning one. I would love to see a lightning one. And it gives you a lot of damage and 5% of physical extra. With this node, you now don't have to get gloves like this. This is overkill. All you really need is just get fizz, life, and attack speed gloves, and then just craft physical damage converted. It might be cheaper to actually get the temple mod that gives you conversion and then craft attack speed yourself, because attack speed tends to overprice the gloves a lot more. And that's my recommendation if you want to buy a budget pair of gloves. So with magnetic strikes, how do we get it without wasting literally 1, 2, 3, 4 points, because you don't need all 4? I found out that this handy dandy Sword of Hope, if you get a large jewel, you can get this Blade Master for the accuracy and melee range, which is great. You can skip all those 3 points. We can pick up this versatility node that gives you accuracy rating and crit chance and attack speed, great, and dexterity and intelligence, which we needed for the build anyway, and the node that we want. And because we have this, I was able to drop the war banner from the build, and I didn't really like pop it for adrenaline because it was a pain in the butt. And we're still at 100% chance to hit, so that fixed that and allowed me to put second wind to my war cry, and that's where the socket came in. So I basically removed war banner and put second wind and linked it to enduring cry, right? And that pretty much covers for the changes after all. This is pretty much what buffed. The war cry change. Pantheon, you're still using Oni-Goroshi. A quick note that actually is that I used to have a 5 link here with the Berserker. But since we can't use Rallying Cry anymore, it doesn't affect us. And we also have this little node right here. What is it? Call to Arms. So we don't want to alternate war cries. I put a 6 link now for the totem, which is great. Our totem now deals like 5 million DPS or something like that. You get 2 of those, is around 10 million. On top of your already 16 million as you look at the POB. And we would put the Berserk now where the Rallying Cry was, so now we have a 6 link totem, which is great. Now, if there's one thing that's kind of bad, and I was going to say, is kind of like not big of a nerf, but it's a big enough nerf where you notice it, and for this very reason, I'm going to leave different POBs down below, and I'll explain it now, is that we lost that node that give you gain 5 war cry. I think it was mob mentality, right? It was basically this one before it changed to that. It gave you 5 war cry when, not 5 war, 5 rage when you war cry. It allowed you to sustain war cry even during phasing, which means we were able to pop a maxed out Berserk. And even if you pop Berserk while mapping, you're able to sustain it. It was great. It was honestly like one of the best nodes. Unfortunately, we don't have that anymore. So if you don't like the inconsistency of Rite of Ruin, you can drop this and go for Blitz Charge. But even that, if you look at it, you get a Blitz Charge on crit. And you probably have to hit, I mean, our attack speed is literally nutty. If you look at it, it's literally attack 20 times a second. So I guess in a second you could theoretically get all 20 charges. But that's a different ratio. You lose the movement speed. It is less damage in certain scenarios. Here's a trick, right? So Rite of Ruin is the best setup. If you keep Rite of Ruin for the movement speed, you want to go zoom, keep the setup. Now, of course, you can drop the quicksilver and then put like a bottled faith for more damage. If you don't care about the movement speed, you're okay with leap slamming. But let's say you do not want the degen. You're like, F the degen, I hate it. You just want the degen from the sword, and pretty much all these nodes already cover it. You want to get rid of this and go for the blitz charge, but then your crit suffers from like an 80% effective crit down to like a 60%. And then here's where I would recommend getting a bottle faith, which is expensive. Do you need a bottle faith? No. But if you do get a bottle faith, it does the same damage as if you had Rite of Ruin. You just lose the movement speed. And that's the only thing. I'm going to stay true to the path of the zoomer. That's what I want to do. It's called Only Cry Zoomer. I'm going to keep zooming. That's my thing. But you guys can play it the whatever way you want it. So one of them is going to be with the Rite of Ruin. Another one's going to be with the Blitz and, how do you call it? And Bottle Faith, if you want to afford it. Now, we can put Bottle Faith here if you don't care about the Quicksilver. But if you do want to keep the Quicksilver, even with Blitz, so you don't lose too much movement speed because you lose 30 from Rite of Ruin, then you can just drop the Wise Oak, because a Bottle Faith at that point with Blitz gives you way more damage than a Wise Oak. That pretty much covers that. The build still functions as it does. The damage is great. And other than the other changes that I can probably describe, this Circle of Guilt got nerfed, but in the POB, I did adjust it. It's now less reduced of a mana reservation, which is fine because we dropped an aura anyway. And even if we kept the aura, you're still fine. So you can totally use the aura if you want. Like, let's say you want to drop Berserker, you can use War Banner, you can still could. If you have the Enlightened, by the way. And the buff effect went down. However, yes, we lost Flat Fizz from Herald of Purity. It's still really good because it gives you 20% more physical damage, and we are converting Fizz to fire, so it does scale our damage. It's perfectly fine. It still adds a lot of damage. Is it the same as before? I don't know. I'd say it's almost similar, but I do think the Fizz was probably more beneficial for this type of build, the Flat Fizz anyway. But again, it's still a very good aura, I guess you can say at this point. It's almost equivalent to Pride. So keep it. And yes, Circle of Anguish is probably still your best ring slot ring, even the nerf version. But try to get for buff effect and mana reservation. Everything else basically stay the same. You still want a minus mana cost chest piece, so you can just whirl as much as you want without dealing with the bullcrap of mana cost and Enduring Cry and all that other stuff. Very quickly, and another way that I handled the regen was the Pantheon's actually very important in this build. It's very ironic where I will make a build where Pantheons actually freaking matter, and this build it does. Simply reason, it says 5% reduced damage taken for damage over time, and that does affect the the debuff, so it's really good. On top of that, 50% increased recovery rate of life and air shield if you stop taking damage over time recently. The Sword Blessing is a damage over time, and it lasts 3 seconds, so let's say you're not fighting anything and it drops off, even a phase boss, that will proc, and you'll get a crap ton of life regen from your basic regen, not even from Enduring Cry. And then the other one is Soul of Abrath, where you get 5% reduced fire damage taken while moving. Cycloning counts as you moving. I believe it is still considered a movement skill. Yes, movement. So this would reduce your damage. It should reduce your damage, because reduced fire damage taken should reduce the fire damage taken from the sword, because it is fire, and it is, lowered by your fire resistance. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything in terms of the Pantheon. Right, and that pretty much does it for the build. If anything else I changed was I did change my MTX. I like this MTX a lot. This is the new MTX from the starter. The supporter pack? I like it a lot. It's like magma, and of course I can use the dragon wings, but I use it too much, so I wanted to use these wings. They're super underused, and I fucking love them. They're the big sword in the middle with the cape that moves, and the wings move. I really like those wings. And then with the damnation and everything, I think it's a really cool set. On top of that, the sword is basically a katana, the MTX from the sword. It's basically the Malice set, right? With the damnation character effect and the pets of the Nine-Tailed Fox. So you want to flex on people. Redeemer weapon effect. This is not really that important. The Malice weapon basically turns the sword, which is a katana by nature, into a freaking red katana, which is perfect for the build. I love it. So yeah, I think that's awesome in terms of an Oni-Goroshi. But yeah, guys, that pretty much covers everything. Let me know if you have any questions. Of course, go back to the other guide if you want more detail on why I chose certain gear. But of course, you can always join the Discord if you want to be very specific. But yeah, let's go into the outro. Well, guys, that's pretty much everything. I've covered everything. I mashed my head against a wall. I've almost gave up and then reborn and then gave up again and then fixed it because I am a man of my word. And the Oni-Cry Zoomer lives to continue. Now, point in taken, This is still my favorite unique. I love the Oni-Goroshi sword, but I think now with the new Warcry stuff, I want to kind of do an Oni-Cry series. And the next skill I kind of want to mess around with is Tectonic Slam, because it fits so well with the theme. And with Chieftain in that clone, I really am curious to see how much DPS I can pull out of that damn thing. So look forward to that. I'm probably going to make a lot more Oni-Goroshi builds in the future. Maybe 1 or 2 per league, because I love the damn sword so much. And mess around with different skills and give you guys different options to see how broken the sword really is because it's super underrated. Yeah, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until the next build guide, everything, leave a follow, leave a like, whatever you guys want to do. If you enjoyed the video, yada yada, I'm not gonna go over to that stuff remote crap. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next build guide or informative video. Good luck farming.